Hey everyone, it's Isaac Smolden, the production manager here at My House. Just wanted to let you know that much like the episode of Redemption that just released, we are going to be splitting today's episode of My Voice into a two-parter. Mike talked with one of our staff members that has a ton of lived experience and now works here in the building, and we just went for so long that we decided to split it right down the middle to make it a little more digestible. So without any further ado, here is Mike and today's guest on My Voice. My Voice is a chance for those who have struggled with addiction, homelessness, depression, and domestic violence to have a candid conversation about their life experience, current situation, and future goals and aspirations. Every episode is conducted anonymously to facilitate a comfortable and safe place for guests to tell their story. My Voice is hosted by Mike Sisson, who works as a case manager at the My House facilities in Wasilla, Alaska. We now join a My Voice conversation, already in progress.
If a budget was of no concern and you had all the money in the world, where would you go on a trip? For how long and why?
Rio for a month with my honey. And because ever since I watched, I forget which Fast and Furious it is, but when they're in Rio and I see that crystal blue water, I'm just like in awe. I want to go to a beach. I want to go, I want to travel. And that's just someplace ever since I've seen that where I'm like, that's, they were all sleeping in the house with the windows wide open and just a beautiful beach. And I fell in love. And a month because, when you go on a normal vacation, like to visit family and stuff, like 2 weeks is like your cap, right? Where you're like, okay, it's not overwhelming. I get my fill of my family, but I'm itching to go back to work, or do my normal life, But something like that, I can spend a month. More than that, though, I would start missing life.
So you're a tropical destination.
Yeah, and I happen to marry a Pacific Islander, so one day I'll go to Guam.
Coincidence? I think not. It was part of the plan the whole time. Where were you born? Where are you from?
I was born in Puyallup, Washington, but I moved up here in 2004, so I was in 5th grade with my twin brother and my mom, and so technically I'm from Palmer, Alaska, because I've been here for most of my life. And almost all of my adult life has been in Wasilla. So Valley girl for sure.
All right. When you moved to Alaska, how old were you again?
I was like 14, whatever you are in 5th grade. So
definitely not 14. That's freshman in high school. 14 is freshman in high school, not 5th grade.
What is that, 10 or 11?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm old.
10 or 11. Definitely okay. Not 14.
Whatever. No one said math was my thing.
So you were 10 or 11?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. So you've spent the better part of your life in Alaska, not in Washington.
Yep.
When you moved here, did you move with both parents, one parent, your entire family?
My mom and my twin brother. My dad, the man who raised me, he had moved up like the year prior. So he was already up here.
And you guys came here for that reason, to reunite and live with and be with him?
Yeah. So my bio dad and I have a relationship now since my recovery and stuff. But growing up, he wasn't there. And the man who raised me, that's my daddy, and he was my mom's best friend for years and years and years. He was my godfather, and if something were to ever happen to her, and then she came up here to visit him one time within that year that he had already moved up here, and he basically told her, Adrian, I don't want to be friends anymore, and her trauma experience self is like, what, why? And he's like, because I love you. I don't want to be just your friend. So we ended up moving.
Smooth operator.
I know. And then,
He just waits, drops. I don't want to be your friend anymore.
yeah.
Shook. And then, because I love you. It
Yeah.
must have been a roller coaster for like 30 seconds for your poor mom.
Yeah. Yep. So she asked him, because he moved up here to kind of get his family's from, here and stuff, and to kind of get a fresh start from Washington life, and she asked him, do you have anything that you need, are you finished here? Do you have anything else you want to do here? Or do you want to move back down there? Or are we moving up here? And he had unfinished business here. And then we ended up staying.
Awesome. In your life prior to moving to Alaska, how would you describe your upbringing? Was your life pretty chill, pretty normal, or were there some gnarly stuff going on?
My mom, so my mom, I feel, did the best she could for what she knew. But we did not have a healthy upbringing. My mom was definitely a hoarder, and like super controlling. Like she called the school district and had our bus route, had us picked up at our driveway because she didn't want us to be down the road at the bus stop. Super controlling. Like I rarely had people stay the night, and I would have to beg and plead and almost act out to be able to stay the night at my friends' houses. And yeah, my mom, and then my brother was a mama's boy, I think my sister, because we're strong-willed females, I think my sister, who's 9 years older than us, I think my mom was terrified of raising another female, so it was easier to send me away to North Star or, other places than to deal with me. But my brother, he could rob a bank and she'd be fine. She'd help him bail him out. Like,
how old were you when you went to North Star?
Like young,
Was it in Washington or here?
Here.
So it's like when you first got here?
I think so I moved up here in 2004, and I think the first time when I went to the short term was 2006.
Okay.
And then.
So preteen.
Mm-hmm. And then I went to the long-term one for about a year, and then at that point we had a treatment team meeting, and they told my mom, look, you can either take her home because there's no need for her to be here, or we can call the state. And so my mom brought me home, but there was still the conflict and the combative behavior, and needless to say, being as strong-willed as I am, and I used to use my anger to act out, especially when I was hurt and stuff like that. And so I ended up getting on juvenile probation and trying to fight my mom and stuff. And growing up, for my temper tantrums and stuff, my mom would like hold me down or like throw me in an ice cold shower and, just low-key abuse, shove a syringe down my throat with vinegar because I called her a B word or whatever. Like, no, I shouldn't have been acting out, but there's definitely some traumatic experiences involved in parenting.
Mm-hmm. In life, in human interaction, that type of behavior begets more of that type of behavior. So,
it pissed me off. It didn't calm me down.
No. There's a time for correction and consequences. It's just they need to be delivered in an appropriate way.
And you can do it while loving on your child.
Absolutely.
Me as a mom today, it's been, a learning experience where, because a little bit is like I don't have my other kids, and so by being reunited with them, I initially wanted to be like the cool one, and love on them and make up for that missed time. But quickly those my kids would act out because I was a cool mom, and then when I showed a little bit of structure, you know, they were like, "You're the worst," and blah, blah. But it's a fine balance, right? Because I want to be the mom that I needed that I didn't get. So today I can still give the structure, but love on them and reassure them, and you know, so it's pretty cool.
That is cool. Sort of like breaking the cycle of
Yeah.
of what happened to you, and it's really cool. So you were born in Washington. You move up here in 5th grade. You experience some pretty traumatic stuff from childhood, from what it sounds like, just from birth to the time. It pretty much seems like it was constant of like not a healthy household. You come up here, you move in with your mom's now boyfriend, husband. Did they ever get married?
No, they were, what's it called? When you live together for so long.
Common law.
Yeah.
Got it.
My mom was she did it twice, and she's like, I'm not doing a third time. We're not screwing it up. So
Understandable, for sure. When you moved in, did anything change? Was there a relief point? Did chaos stop at any point, or did it just pick up the moment you moved in and it stayed that way?
It subsided for a little bit, and I've always had a close relationship with my dad. Like, even when I didn't know him as my dad, like, we were super close, and he's my go-to, you know, and my mom and I were super combative, but because there were certain lines, because that was our mom, he wouldn't cross, you know, and so even though he disagreed with some of the things that she was doing, you know, like sending me away or, you know, or putting us on medication at a young age, you know, he had no biological ties. He didn't, you know, there wasn't much that he could do. So as much as he wanted to, and then, you know, because he loved my mom, you know, later I don't think he knew how to deal with it at the time because he wanted to make her happy and we're her kids, but there's definitely stuff that he didn't agree with, for sure.
So you move up here. It's a little calm for a while. It picks up. You talked about being in a short term in North Star and then being in for longer and then coming back home. How old were you when you came back home?
I'd say 15 or 16.
So you went through that process for quite a few years, probably like 3 or 4
Yeah.
in North Star, in and out, maybe not the whole time, but
No, twice. But the long term was a year long.
gotcha.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And then I got out, and because the combative behavior was still there with me and my mom, I ended up getting on juvenile probation and in and out of juvie. At that time, I held the record. I was in and out 12 times.
From the time you got home from North Star to the time you turned 18?
To the
During
time
the-
I turned 16 or 17. I finally got off juvenile probation at that point. Yeah, but in between that, like, 2 to 3 year period, I went into Matsuya facility like 12 times, to the point where Judge Cutler was like, look, you can either get your stuff together or I can send you to McLaughlin. And
What were the things you were in and out for? Was it like physical fights with family?
Yep. And then I went to a therapeutic foster home in the midst of that, trying to separate me and my mom, and I ended up getting in a fight there, and definitely a lot of acting out and with the lack of love. I used to, I mean, I'm not that big of a person, but I used to definitely, for sure, be the first one, like, what's good, you know, and that followed me into adult life, you know. I've always fought hard for what I believe in and what I love, but with that, I definitely had a history of fighting even toxically, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I knew.
So now you're 16, 17, in that age range. You're out of juvenile probation. What happens next? Where does your life go from there?
so I used to fight with my mom about one thing in particular. I mean, many things, but one thing in particular was the meds because she had us diagnosed at a very young age, and they put me on lithium when I was a child, like single digits, and that's not even something like they want to put on adults nowadays, you know.
Correct.
So, and they made me feel like you put somebody who's not psychotic on a psychotic medication and watch them be psychotic, right? It doesn't calm them down. So putting me on a mood stabilizer when I wasn't bipolar definitely increased my anger, on top of the trauma and not knowing how to deal with that, you know? So it followed me into, after I got off probation, I ended up, I want to say I was 16, because I ended up moving in with my now first husband and father of my oldest two's dad and his family. They took me in, you know, that was a very unhealthy relationship. We stayed together for a long time. We got together at end of 16. And then my daughter, and I had her in 2014. So, I mean, we were together for a hot minute, and in that there was definitely fights and breakups and, you know, and like I love my kids with all my heart, but and no buts. I do. They were also trying to save a relationship, trying to have a family, trying to create what I didn't get, you know, even if that meant staying with somebody who wasn't healthy for me, and who at the time I wasn't healthy for, you know. So, and then I lived there up until, and I got in fights with his family too, right? So we ended up moving.
Physical or verbal?
Verbal. And then, because there was no, I saw my way, and if you didn't believe in that, then I thought you were wrong, and I spoke my mind. So we ended up moving in with his family in Anchorage, right? And the same type of conflict happened. Mind you, I take accountability now for my actions, but I also subject myself to not healthy people too. So, yeah. And then that happened until we broke up after my kids were taken, in 2014, because she was born in March and she was about 4 months old when they were taken. So.
And they were taken by OCS
Yes.
due to what exactly? What was their reason for taking them?
Well, me and my ex had gotten into a fight, and he had said I was playing tug of war with my son. I was pregnant with Sophia at the time, and he had done this manipulation thing where every time he got pissed off, he would take my son and run to his parents, and I wasn't allowed there. So I didn't want him doing that. So I went to go take my son and put him in my arms, and he told the cop that I was playing tug of war with my son. So they did a whole third party type thing, and he was trying to make it seem like I was unstable, and in that moment I was just trying to keep my child.
Absolutely. It's easy in a situation where there's conflict for the person who has a calm demeanor to seem like the one who has it together. I know that in my past, a lot of manipulative people that I knew, that was their tactic. They would work extra hard to get people escalated, and once they got escalated, they would just stay calm. Everyone believed they were this angel of a person, when in reality, they were just the devil wearing an angel mask.
And then when you fight for the people you love and stuff like that, you look unstable because you're crying because
you're louder than the other person.
Yeah.
And you have bigger emotions. Yeah. I wanted to touch on that because it is a very common misconception that the loudest person in the room is the most unstable. That's not always the case. It can certainly be, and it is sometimes that way. You know, the person in Walmart throwing tables. But a lot of times if you find out why they're throwing the tables, they don't sound so crazy anymore. So now you're in the point in your life where you had your kids taken away. Can't even imagine what that felt like. And I will not sit too long on that just so that you don't have to sit in those feelings for too long. When they were taken, what happened to you after that?
I moved out of the place I was staying at. I had my own apartment in Palmer. It was mine, but my ex would come there and stay there and move back in and move back out. And so after that, I ended up getting into a different place. And because I wanted to be loved, right? My whole life I've longed for a family. I've longed for, I was that little girl pretending to give birth when we were playing house because I've always wanted to be a mom, you know? So in the midst of that, I meet my middle son's dad, who I was lonely. It wasn't anything else. And it was a one-night stand, and I ended up, my luck, getting pregnant. And my middle son is a beautiful boy. His bio dad does not want anything to do with him. He's adopted to a beautiful family. Because I got pregnant with another child while my case was still open with my youngest two, OCS took that baby. In the midst of me, I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks into my relationship, my new relationship. So I told that guy because I felt like he needed, I wanted to give him the option to leave if he wanted to, you know, as much as that sucked. And he stayed. And they say your first love is that puppy dog, you know, high school, blah, blah. That's exactly what it was. The second one breaks you, right? Just traumatizes you, you up, you know, like it's the one that shapes you. And that was that one. I learned life with that one, you know, never seen a drug in my life. I mean, weed, but I've never seen anything else in my life. Never even knew. I had to Google. One time I found out he was off doing drugs, and I had to Google what clear and down meant because I didn't know what that meant. You know, well, in the midst of that, I ended up taking him back, and, well, we got pregnant with our son. Needless to say, I'm fertile. But, again, OCS took that baby because my case was still open with my oldest two, and I see now that relationship was unstable. At the time, I just wanted my family. I wanted to help him. I wanted my kids. I wanted the best of both worlds, right? And I thought that he's what I wanted. I didn't know in the process of trying to help his dysfunction that I wasn't dealing with my own dysfunction, right? So I have 4 kids at this point. He had left and cheated and did the whole shebang, right? And then I took him back and gave him another shot. And then when he did it all over again, it broke me a little extra because at that point, I stayed with him and we lost trial to get my kids back, and it didn't seem to faze him. So I shattered, and I started smoking meth. Within a month, he got back into shooting. You know, it was one thing, you know, if you can't beat him, join him. You know, at least he's not hiding it. At least he's not running off, you know. So we smoked it, and then he had previously been a shooter. So he came to me one day, and he's like, I really want to do it one last time, you know. And knowing what I know now, I'm like, there's never one last time, right? And so he kept bugging me about it, and I didn't know anything about addiction. I was like, whatever, I was still in that, I can stop whenever I want, you know. Well, he kept doing it, and so I finally caved, and he did it once, and then I told him, I was like, if you don't stop, I'm going to start. Knowing dang well he wasn't going to stop. And I was curious. I wanted to know what made that so worth losing me and the kids. What made that worth it, you know? So he didn't believe me either. So I walked up into the trap house and I asked for some stuff, and I did what I did. And next thing you know, I'm a full-blown IV meth user, and I liked it. You know, I fell in love with that. You know, I didn't need to be a hoe because of the reactions that you got from doing the drugs that way. So, you know, he could go off and do whatever, and it numbed me. You know, but I lost myself in the process. In the process of not feeling those things, I ended up becoming someone that I never thought I would. You know, I used to never steal. Next thing you know, I was robbing people. Next thing you know, I'm committing felonies. You know, I'd
like to point something out. You didn't start using drugs until you had 4 kids taken by OCS.
Yep.
That blows my mind. I'm not going to throw any shade, make any judgment calls, or say anything controversial. I just wanted to highlight that. You didn't pick up a drug until after you had them taken, fought to get them back, and then lost that fight.
Yep.
Granted, you've pointed out that those living situations weren't the healthiest, and you owned your responsibility in any of the actions now that you took that weren't good.
Yeah.
I just wanted to focus on that because it's still, when I hear your story, it still blows my mind. So, to recap, born in Washington, tough stuff, trauma, chaos, constant fighting with your mom, it sounds like, constant contention there. Searching for love and a family is really the theme from childhood. To be able to have what you felt like you didn't have and what you so desperately wanted at that point and had no idea how to get it.
Yeah.
And now here you are, now full swing in addiction. Now what have you came to my house at this point? How old were you? Let's pick up there and keep going.
Yeah. So, I didn't start using until after I lost trial, but in the midst of that, my ex used to work at Cardeets, which used to be attached here. We used to partner with them. And so I would come in here and I met everybody through him. But it took me like a year or so into that to actually become a client, and actually get engaged with people, you know, and it wasn't until the abuse with him started that I actually started somewhat opening up to everybody here. I tried to paint it off like a pretty picture, right? Until it wasn't, and I had no other option. And then it became very much blaming him. If he were to do this, then my life wouldn't suck right now. In all reality, OCS having my kids, there was a whole pile of crap on why I was feeling the way I was feeling. But I didn't know what accountability was. I didn't realize that in their eyes, by me staying with another toxic person, that I was I could potentially subject my kids to that. I didn't know. I didn't look at it from that perspective. I didn't know how to look at it from another perspective other than mine. So I didn't understand. I had kids fresh out of high school. Like, I was 2 months pregnant when I walked and I graduated, you know, like I knew what I wanted and I fought for what I wanted, but I didn't know how in the midst of that, it could look so unstable and how potentially that could have put my kids in danger, which would have never been my intention. Mm-hmm. So I get it. I don't agree with how things happened. But I get it. Mm-hmm. At that point, so yeah, in 2014, I started dating that ex, my youngest son's dad, and I started coming around here. And so during my whole like OCS battle, pretty much, my house has been here, you know. I just didn't know how to use them for actual help. Instead, I just used them because they would help me, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. So you started coming in here initially through that ex.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you started needing the services that they provided when you were in your use, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Walk us through that. What did that look like?
Exactly that. I would come in when I needed a shower or clean clothes or food or, and it was so toxic. He was a client still too at the time. So if he was here at supper club, best believe I was making a scene.
Yep.
Well, so much of that. And then I came in here one day specifically, first time I met Officer Lopez. And, Jim Rogers had actually, I came in here and I had an abscess on my forehead. You don't have to be a dirty user, because I was a very cleanly user. I have staff members here, like Kira will tell you, I was very clean.
Yeah.
I've just always been super cleanly. And, but if you're doing things like that and you're in a dirty atmosphere as well, you can get things like abscesses. And, I ended up getting one and it almost took out my eye. And I came in here and it was so painful. And Jim took me to the doctor. They took care of it. And in the midst of that, this girl had did me dirty. And so I justified taking her heroin as a, well, you did me dirty, so I can trade this and go get something that I want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of that, Jim went through, because I had all my stuff in a Coleman cooler in the back of the van. It had wheels and everything. I was just rolling along, right? And and Jim looked through that and found a syringe and heroin. And it was only like $20 worth. And of course, I blamed it on my ex at the time. I was like, it's not mine. It's not,
Of course,
you know?
like any good addict. Yeah, absolutely. It's not your fault.
You know? And even though it wasn't mine, I jacked it from someone else, but
Right.
still. Well, so he ended up calling Lopez, and they took me into what's now is the bookkeeper's office, but it was the nurse's office.
Mm-hmm.
And they do this whole like intervention thing with me, right? And I remember being so pissed because Lopez is like, well, you can either work with my house and get into treatment and better your life, or I can get you for like distribution or something like that. And I straight looked at him and I was like, it is $20 worth of heroin. It is not a kilo of coke. I don't know what you're trying to pull. And I'm just like so livid. And well, looking back, it's funny, right? In that moment, I was so pissed, and all they were trying to do was help me.
Yeah.
And but I felt betrayed. Like, how dare you look in my box of probably stolen goods?
Yep.
And but in their eyes, you brought heroin onto our property, you know? So I ended up, after a good long many hours conversation, agreeing to work with my house to get into treatment. As soon as Lopez left, I bounced.
Of course.
I wasn't trying to get help at that time.
Of course.
I said what I said to get out of that room. And then there was some more life that happened. You know, at one point in time, I started selling stuff, and I got robbed. And my ex didn't know I had anything. So, but the people that robbed me knew that that was my husband, right? And so they kidnapped him as well, and hurt him really bad. And
so at this point, you got robbed and kidnapped, both of you.
Mm-hmm. By people that we both knew. And he didn't know anything about me having stuff, which made me feel obligated to try to help him in this situation, no matter what he did to me in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Because my loyalty has gotten me in some crappy situations.
Right.
There's loyalty and there's boundaries nowadays, just to mention.
Yes.
But in that time period, there was cigarettes put out on me. I got beat up.
How long did that last?
Tased.
Were you kidnapped?
Almost 2 days.
2 days. In that process, you had lit cigarettes put on you. You got beaten. You were tased.
Mm-hmm. They beat the crap out of him, made him drink like a whole gallon thing of alcohol.
Holy cow.
Then beat him up again, and then dropped him off 2 miles away from the hospital and made him walk.
You told me before that you've been kidnapped, but I didn't know all of those details.
Oh, that was one time.
Wow.
Yeah. As much as I had lost myself, I still had that love and loyalty, and I still trusted way beyond measure in a life that you cannot trust anybody in.
Correct.
So I trusted. That whole situation started because I trusted this girl, and she went and told everyone that I had a bunch of stuff, and they knew I wasn't going to give it to him without them using him as leverage. So we ended up coming in here when we got away from that, both traumatized, both,
yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, I've looked back and read my own case notes before, and it's, yeah.
We just kind of glazed over that. I just want to I just want to say it again because I know that you've healed and you've dealt with a lot. You were kidnapped and tortured for 2 days. 48 hours. Like, that's the type of stuff that you usually only see in a movie, and you lived that. So, not even counting all the trauma that you experienced as a child, now you have that brand new, fresh. Granted, you've said that you were living a life that you shouldn't have lived, around people you shouldn't have been around. Fine, whatever. That doesn't excuse the fact that by itself is insane. That you lived through it and you are where you are today. So you ended up coming in here after that. When you came here, at that point, what were you looking for?
Safety. In the midst of, even though I was using this program, even though I kind of felt some type of way because me and him were so on and off, and he would come in here, and I felt salty that this agency would help him too, and because he abused me, he cheated on me, all these things, right? So I felt a little bit of resentment towards this place for helping him as well. Through all of that, I knew it was safe here.
So then you come here to get help. From what I understand, and I remember at some point after that is when you were trespassed.
Yeah.
So what happened there?
A couple more months went on. We ended up splitting up again. He, I think, went back to jail or something like that, and I went my own direction, and I would still come in high, and like I used to steal clothes from the boutique, even because I was too proud. I was too proud to come in here, even though they would give me a voucher. I was too proud to admit that I needed help, So between that and I got caught sleeping over by our bus over here a couple times. I wasn't making any progress. I was still high. I was still doing the thing,
And I'd imagine, because you're living basically hell on earth at that point in your life in active use, you probably weren't too nice to staff, I'd imagine.
No, not at all. Yeah. I wasn't, with that lack of progress, I would do things like vent to Kira or Jim or Jen, for hours and take up their whole entire day. And being a staff member now, I can see how that is derailing, At that time, I just was so broken. I just wanted somebody to hear me, but I wasn't willing to make the change at that point, They never let me in housing because I would either rob those girls or destroyed the house or derailed all the girls. Like they never did.